statutes of the Open University, I declare this congregation open for the conferment of degrees and the presentation of our graduates. Distinguished guests, graduates, and friends of the university, it is my privilege and pleasure to welcome you all to the 7th of the Open University's degree ceremonies being held in 2015. We're delighted to welcome principals of other Scottish university and colleges, heads of other educational bodies, charities and councils, members of the Scottish Parliament, and Open University honorary graduates, all of whom have found time in their busy diaries to be with us this afternoon. It's also my great pleasure to welcome honorary graduate Miss Jenny Brown. We're delighted to be able to honour her here today. Each year, the Open University awards over 14,000 degrees, and throughout 2015, more than 8,000 of the graduates are being presented for their qualifications at degree ceremonies such as this one today in Edinburgh. These are being held in 10 different towns and cities throughout England, also in Belfast, Cardiff, and Dublin. This illustrates the extraordinary scale, scope, and reach of the Open University. It goes without saying that today is a very important occasion in the life of you, our graduates, your families, and loved ones, as well as the university staff, who I hope you will feel have supported and nurtured you on your journey. You could be forgiven for feeling that this occasion is so important that it needs to be solemn. You'd be quite wrong. In every sense, this is an afternoon of celebration. So we're all going to be very disappointed if anyone crosses the stage this afternoon to anything less than thunderous applause or whatever other way you choose to express your enthusiasm and support. So with that in mind, why don't all of today's graduates stand and let's have a practice. Families and friends and Open University staff, join with me with celebrating our graduates. Please stand. Wasn't bad, but I was in Dublin just 3 weeks ago and I'm sure they were louder than that. So let's give that another go, shall we? That was much better. That was much, much better. Let's see what you do when they cross the stage. So today's ceremony is going to begin with the presentation of those graduates who've gained a higher degree and who've been able to attend here today. And they're going to be presented by Dr. James Miller, who's the Director of the Open University in Scotland. We will then see the awarding of the honorary degree of Doctor of the University to Miss Jenny Brown. Dr. Miller will present Miss Brown, who will sign the honorary graduates book, and then make a reply to the graduates. Then we will continue our presentation of graduates and those who have gained their first degrees. These will be presented by Mrs. Lucy MacLeod, who's the Deputy Director of the Open University in Scotland. And to conclude the ceremony, I'll give you a personal address as well. I'd now like to call upon Dr. Miller to present higher degree graduates.
Pro Vice-Chancellor, I shall now present graduates who have gained higher degrees and have been able to attend here today. I present to you for the degree of Master of Arts in Art History, Hazel Cantor. For the degree of Master of Arts in Childhood and Youth, I present Karen Rand. Jennifer Robertson. For the degree of Master of Arts in Classical Studies, I present June Chisholm. Christopher Heenan. For the degree of Master of Arts in Education, I present Anne-Marie McCallan. For the degree of Master of Arts in English, I present Carolyn McIntyre. For the degree of Master of Arts in History, I present Susan Suddick. For the degree of Master of Arts in Music, I present Graham McEntee. For the degree of Master of Business Administration, I present Janice Clegg. Claire Edwards. Arshad Gilani. Lynn Huckerby. Timothy Mason. Eduardo Querol. Tony Salmonen. Yoshiro Shabazaki. Alexander Stanley. Georg Super. Ismo Tanskanen. Tatiana Usova Sinclair. James Walker. Leslie Uni. For the degree of Master of Business Administration Technology Management, I present Paul Mills. For the degree of Master of Education with Distinction, I present Joanne Rodham. For the degree of Master of Education, I present Melanie McElroy. Slumko Tukti. For the degree of Master of Engineering, I present Laura Maybury. Stuart Ross. For the degree of Master of Science in Advancing Healthcare Practice with distinction, I present Audrey McKernan. For the degree of Master of Science in Advancing Healthcare Practice, I present Sandra Gourley. Andrea Hall. Mary Hastings. Mark Kelly. Melanie Smith. Britta Wayne. For the degree of Master of Science in Development Management, I present Catherine Armstrong. For the degree of Master of Science in Earth Science with distinction, I present Andy Leggett. For the degree of Master of Science in Earth Science, I present Jane Griffiths. For the degree of Master of Science in Forensic Psychology and Criminology, I present Vasiliki Danili. And for the degree of Master of Science in Medical Physics, I present Paul Gray. Pro-Vice-Chancellor, colleagues, graduates and guests, there can be few people who have had the impact of spreading the joy, passion and sheer importance of the written word than Jenny Brown. Jenny Brown was born in 1958 and grew up in Edinburgh. Jenny is the director of Scotland's largest literary agency, Jenny Brown Associates, and has made an outstanding contribution to education and culture in Scotland as founder of what is now the world's largest celebration of the written word, the pioneering Edinburgh International Book Festival, which she directed until 1991 and remains on its board. Jenny's aim for the festival chimes very closely with the vision, mission and values of the Open University, and that is why we are delighted that Jenny has chosen to accept our honorary degree. Her passionate vision was clear and simple: to make books accessible at a time when, as she says, something like 69% of the population had never crossed the threshold of a bookshop because they thought it wasn't for them, by creating a space that people could readily come to without any inhibitions. The Edinburgh International Book Festival is now the much celebrated annual 17 summer day event taking place in gardens in the heart of Scotland's capital. The festival started in 1983 with a small team led by Jenny, who was only 25 years old. It was one of only 3 book festivals in the United Kingdom at the time, and there are now over 300. In that first year, it was held in a few tents, which Jenny describes as like a scout camp, in comparison to today's magnificent tented village, and involved battling wind, rain, and power cuts. Under Jenny's direction, the festival got off to a flying start. 30,000 visitors turned up to the first festival, and the programme had 30 Meet the Author events. It has grown to boast over 700 events for all ages, with writers from 40 different countries, and has had around 3 million visitors. The festival now hosts a large bookshop and a variety of cultural and political events, along with its children's programme and bookshop. The acclaimed roll call of speakers over the years includes Harold Pinter and J.K. Rowling, Ian Rankin and Salman Rushdie. The Open University in Scotland is proud to have a long association as a sponsor of the festival. The festival was identified as pivotal in Edinburgh being named the world's first UNESCO City of Literature in 2004, in recognition of its literary heritage and vibrant contemporary scene. Jenny was one of the 4 founders of that award. The event is central to Edinburgh's acclaimed August arts celebrations, and all from that humble start, which was Jenny's brainchild. The Book Festival is, however, only one of Jenny's many accomplishments. Jenny is former head of literature at the Scottish Arts Council, now Creative Scotland. She was the coordinator for the 1995 Readiscovery campaign, whose book bus took writers and books to primary schools all over Scotland, and she has presented book programmes for Scottish television and currently chairs one of Scotland's other thriving literary book festivals, Bloody Scotland. Pro-Vice-Chancellor, by the authority of Senate, I present to you for the honorary degree of Doctor of the University, Jenny Brown.
Pro-Vice-Chancellor, members of Council and Senate, colleagues, guests, and especially my fellow graduates. It's such an honour to receive this degree, and from the Open University, which I've long admired. And I couldn't be more pleased that this award has been made in recognition of my work in making literature more accessible, and particularly as founding director of the Edinburgh International Book Festival. You've all studied so long and so hard, burning the midnight oil, reading textbooks away from your friends and family in order to be sitting here today to have your degrees conferred upon you. Whatever your subject, be it medical physics, earth sciences, law, arts, or engineering, perhaps the last thing on your mind right now will be reaching for a book for pleasure in the days and weeks and months to come. But can I urge you to rediscover the joy and the power of reading? Can I just remind you why reading for pleasure is so important? I'd argue that story is the bedrock of our society, that civilizations express themselves through the stories they tell each other. Telling stories is that thing that makes us human. I might have lived most of my life in Scotland, but through my reading I can leap over cultural walls and cross the barriers of time. I become someone else and return to my world a little altered, and that I know then that things can be different. Reading has benefits which will see us through life. As Albert Einstein said, if you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales. Every August, the book festival connects the city and Scotland with writing and ideas from all over the world, firing the imaginations of the young and broadening the horizons of readers of all stages of life. The events at the festival help us make sense of our surroundings, allowing us to learn about different cultures and through that information and knowledge to understand them, ourselves, and our place in the world. But it wasn't always thus. Edinburgh in Scotland in 1983, when the year the book festival began, was a very different place. Then there was no tradition of going out to hear an author speak. There was no 24-hour book culture. I well remember that Edinburgh bookshops closed their doors at lunchtime on Saturdays and didn't reopen until Monday mornings. 200 years after the Enlightenment, it felt rather like Scotland had stalled, and it was yet to rediscover itself as a place where writing happened. When I was at school, I knew that Edinburgh was a city built on books. Our textbooks were published and printed here. We walked in the footsteps of dead writers like Robert Louis Stevenson, and our railway station is named after a series of novels. But what was missing was what Alistair Gray, in his novel Lanark, was to call the imagined city. As a girl, I read about boarding schools in Switzerland, Middle-earth, Narnia, the American prairie, but rarely about Scotland and never about Edinburgh. Scottish children didn't figure as characters, and that really matters in terms of aspiration. Back in 1983, there was no blueprint for what a book festival should be, but we knew we wanted to hold the festival somewhere unexpected, with a carnival atmosphere, so Charlotte Square Gardens was chosen, and we held the event in marquees rather than behind closed doors, and ensured that a third of all the programme was aimed at children. Publishers supported us by bringing us world-famous writers like John Updike and Anita Desai, and readers flocked in their thousands. So let's fast forward now to 2015, and things have moved on considerably. Edinburgh is now the first UNESCO City of Literature, and we do live imaginatively in our city and our country now. Best-selling writers like Ian Rankin, Kate Atkinson, and Alexander McCall Smith live here. The book festival now attracts over 800 writers every year, and it's played a significant part in that sea change, helping to instill a sense of confidence in our emerging writers. At a time when our media dumbs down, the book festival raises our sights high and encourages audiences to join in the discussions. And I'm delighted that the Open University recognises and endorses the aims of the book festival and has been such a key partner for many years. That sense of connecting with the wider world and making literature and writing accessible has continued in my present job as literary agent, as we identify and develop new talent from the thousands of submissions we receive each year, and we launch new careers. 13 years after establishing it, 5 of us represent some 200 writers, and my mantra continues to be Scotland to the world. You can be based in a tiny office in Marchmont and yet be a vibrant part of a worldwide literary scene. So that's a little about my journey in literature, and I still thank my lucky stars that somehow I've managed to turn an early passion for reading into a life spent in literature, connecting writers with readers and developing the talent which will inspire the next generation. But what about your journey? One path, the studying for a degree, has come to a well-deserved conclusion for all of you today. But once the celebrations are over, the photos taken, the gowns returned, the fizz is finished, let the end of these studies mark the resumption or the start of many other paths, voyages of the imagination, immersing you in new cultures, crossing boundaries, and enabling you to see the world differently. And maybe, freed from the tyranny of deadlines of essays and dissertations, perhaps you'll start writing again, this time creative writing, diaries, letters, blogs, maybe memoir, fiction, poetry. We need to hear new voices, voices with real experience of life. Ideas can come from anywhere, so keep a notebook handy, hone your skills, weave those words and narratives in your head, find your own unique voice, and get your stories onto the page or onto the screen. Whoever you write for, whether it be yourselves, your family, or a wider public, you'll be continuing that spirit of self-belief and achievement which started when you embarked upon your OU degree. So, take confidence that literature and writing happens here in your country. Stand on the shoulders of those giants as you brandish your degrees and wave to the world. You've got something to say, so don't whisper it, but shout it. And the best possible preparation to be a writer, and the best way to ready ourselves for the rest of our lives. You know what I'm going to say. It's reading. If there's one message to take away from my words, I hope that's it. Keep reading. And a very happy graduation day.
Pro-Vice-Chancellor, we have now come to the part of today's ceremony that marks the presentation of graduates who have gained a first degree and have been able to attend here today. The full subject and classification details are printed in the Directory of Graduates. I present to you for the degree of Bachelor of Arts with First Class Honours, John Anderson. Melanie Budge. Alexander Burns-Smith. Alan Carson. Ray Clark. Aileen Coyle. Peter Dickey. Roberta Evans. Linda Harper. David Morrison. Avril Newton. Louise Rowlings. Isabel Swan. Pauline Turner. Ian Wilson. And Kevin Woolard. For the degree of Bachelor of Arts with Honours, I present Patricia Alexander. Marion Allison. Rachel Bath. Christina Blair. Andrew Burns. Vicky Campbell. Victoria Campbell. Rita Chisholm. Michael Coletta. Peter Connor. Michelle Connor. Claire Corcoran. Lorraine Ditcham. Gerard Doherty. Margaret Donaldson. William Dugan. Beverly Dunbar. Danielle Eady. Tracy Fagan. Lisa Fennick. Aileen Geddes. Tristan Gillespie. Emma Govan. Sheila Gregory. Patrick Holmes. Marie Jennings. Anne Jones. Francesca Kirkup. Maria Crea. Jade Lafferty. Shona Law. Anne McCaskill. James Mackey. Marianne Madden. Karen MacArthur. Caroline McAvoy. Melissa McBride. Irene McCabe. Margot McConnell. Edward McDade. Patricia McGarrigle. Vivian Mackenzie. Amy McKnight. Christine McLennan. Jasmine Melbourne. David Miller. Laura Moore. Deborah Moretti. Maria Novaka. John Patterson. Lorraine Thorpe. John Pryor. Susan Queripel. Leslie Rennie. Rachel Sanderson. Aliki Sheena. Vicky Sharp. Andrew Slack. Ron Smiley. Susan Smith. Diana Stewart. Andrew Swanson. Kate Katie Tollin. Nikki van Hengst. Rogier Want. Simon Weller. And Stephen Wilson. For the degree of Bachelor of Arts, I present Phyllis Blair. Philip Kircher. Fiona Macmillan. John Shields. And Lynn Woolwork. For the degree of Bachelor of Engineering with First Class Honours, I present Tamar Mullah. Craig Stewart. For the degree of Bachelor of Engineering with Honours, I present Gary Best. Sean Guthrie. David Harris. Mrs. Dawn Jaffrey, collecting the posthumous award on behalf of Neil Jaffrey. Peter Jones. Ewan MacDonald. Craig Morris. Stephen Robertson. And Martin Welsh. For the degree of Bachelor of Laws with Honours, I present Lee Childs. Maxwell Matsai. And Natalie Rathbone. For the degree of Bachelor of Science with First Class Honours, I present Greg Cahill. Duncan Davidson. Nicola Dean. Kirsty Devine. Francesca Greenwood. Paula Heenan. Joanne Hopkin. Alexandra House. Caroline Hutton Stott. Victoria Lethbridge. Craig McCallum. Susie Paget. Stephen Saville. Fiona Scott. Martin Shakespeare. Heather Shearer. Simon Stewart. John Tier. Alistair Thompson. And Scott Wigglesworth. For the degree of Bachelor of Science with Honours, I present Morag Anderson. Susan Bain. Ian Baker. Lee Barrett. Carol Beckwith. Joyce Bell. Mark Bond. Owen Bondin. Craig Bruce. Zuzana Bubalova. Gillian Carmichael. Kirsten Cook. Gwendolyn Copleston. Robert Cromie. Sonia Dalari. Amanda Dutton. Andrew Exton. Fiona Ferguson. James Forrest. Frances Gardiner. Jennifer Heglin. Martin Hunter. Erin Johnston.
I've been given a dare. I have to do a selfie with the Student Association. And that means that they will donate money to charity if I do it.
Alan Lockhart. Jimmy Louth. Harriet McAndrew. Sarah McCaskill. Michael McCorkadale. Ian McInnes. Maureen Martin. Ewan Masson. Fiona McCabe. Lynn McGovern. Laura McIntyre. Susan McLennan. Tisha McClellan. Gary McClelland. Gary Meller. Rebecca Miller. Nargis Morrison. Michelle Nelson. Timothy Pask. Sonia Patterson. Alexander Pokrant. David Pritchard. Fiona Rankin. Tara Ravindran. Lynn Santens. Nicola Scaramuza. Ewan Scarlett. Fiona Shake. Anne Marieka Snipa. Alexander Spence. Ruth Stannett. Diane Thompson. Anne-Katrin Teifka. Carmel Thompson. Valenta Tavengwa. Jacqueline Tressida. Anita Weisberger. Joseph Walker. And Sandra Woodhead. For the degree of Bachelor of Science, I present Ronnie Carey. Shona Cherry. Carolyn Crawford. Avril Forbes. Stuart Hogg. Steve Jones. Cheryl Karolowski. Peter McGoldrick. Rebecca McIntosh. Lynn McLean. And Alan Wishart. And for the Diploma of Higher Education, I present Lynn Binning. Linda Sinclair. Jess Ann MacLeod. And Julie Forbes.
Right, well, why don't we start off with another round of applause for our fantastic graduates today. Okay, that's better than Dublin. Good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to welcome you all here, our guests, members of Senate, staff, and of course our fantastic graduates here. It's a very special day for everyone, I know that, because I can still remember the day when I graduated with my bachelor's at Story Hall in Melbourne. My mother and my grandfather were there, in fact. They're so proud of me. Actually, at the time, I didn't really fully appreciate the enormity of being a first-in family and what it meant to them. And I'm sure there are many of your families here today who feel similarly about you. Definitely, being here on this day is one of the best parts of my job. Not because I enjoy shaking all the sweaty palms, and actually there was a really heavy handshake on one of you. So that's going to ache for a little bit. The odd hug, that's nice. And this time I was challenged to do a selfie. Thank you, Ruth. She's the president of Usher, so we should expect that, I'm sure. But now we'll be donating to charity, so thank you for that person who let me do that to them. But it is an important day to share success with all of you. I see so many emotions. I see some fantastic smiles. I can just sort of feel it oozing from you as you come across the stage. I see a few tears as well. So I imagine that for some of you that journey's been a long and hard one, and there's a story behind every one of you. You tell me wonderful things. Like someone said this was their 6th degree today. That's pretty amazing. Other people tell me how many children you've got, what areas of study you like the best, and I think psychology ranked pretty high today. And many of you said, I'll be coming back for more. Now, what better advertisement is there for the fantastic studies we have here? And I believe amongst us today, and it was a bit hard for me to tell, but there was actually a mother and a son graduating. So congratulations to you two as well. I think what's really clear today is that you've actually achieved something quite incredible and extraordinary, and you deserve to feel very pleased with yourselves. From today, you can call yourself, very proudly, a graduate of the Open University. You all have that one thing in common, and you can be incredibly proud. You're an exclusive, inclusive group of people. And in fact, since 1973, we've graduated nearly 500,000 graduates, and you've just added to that list. This moment, though, will pass us by in a blur of emotion and adrenaline. I know, I still can recall walking across the stage. We had to do a silly doff the cap thing and a bit of a curtsy, and it feels really old-fashioned when I think about what we do today. So in amongst all this excitement, please take time to pause, take a breath, and make sure you've had a chance to take it all in, because I want you to remember it as well. I'm also really delighted to be able to celebrate your success here in Edinburgh, and we've been hearing a bit about this today from Jenny. We know that Edinburgh is a capital well renowned throughout the world for its literary achievements, its writers past and present, including many famous authors with direct links to the city. I'm just sort of wondering who amongst you here actually studied literature? Just put your hands up for me. Did anyone study literature? Okay, for this bit is for you, because I've got a bit of a quiz here. Let's just see how many books and writers you might know. So, for example, who wrote Treasure Island? Louis Stevenson. Who wrote Peter Pan? J.M. Barrie, yeah, you're getting it. What did Kenneth Grahame write that was really famous, that seems to be on every school syllabus? Wind in the Willows. And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, what did he write? Sherlock Holmes, you've got it all. And The Prime of Miss Brodie, who wrote that? Muriel Spark, thank you. And Sir Walter Scott, what was he responsible for? The Waverley series, thank you. And it was one of the world's very early bestsellers, I gather. And then finally, just one last famous person. What did Alexander McCall Smith write? I should be hearing dozens of books and names here. So there are many that we could play that game with, so thank you for participating in that. But it's very appropriate, especially in the light of our honorary graduate, Jenny Brown, who we're celebrating here today, and to also celebrate the incredible literary heritage of Edinburgh and Scotland. And I'm very pleased and very proud to be welcoming you, Jenny, to the Open University family. Now, being a graduate of the OU means various things in life and signifies a lot about the journey you've been on. You've learned from people who are leaders in the fields, and especially from those who have been recently exploring far-flung places. You would know that recently we've been landing on the comets, for example, with the Rosetta spacecraft. We also advise government on the balance between security and privacy when we use the internet. And these are the types of thought leaders that contribute to your courses. You're also graduating at a time when the Open University is at the forefront of innovation. In 2014, we won a national award for our Open Science Laboratory, which is an online resource which enables students to undertake science fieldwork remotely. Perhaps some of you have already used it. And our Masters of Business Administration celebrates 25 years this year, so happy birthday to the MBA. Also in 2013, the Open University brought together over 40 UK and international universities and specialist education institutions and cultural bodies to provide massive open online courses. You might know them as MOOCs, through an initiative called FutureLearn. And since we started, we now have attracted more than 1 million learners. And I would hope and expect that after today, that you won't stop your study with us and you might go and explore some of those. And as you know, our research is outstanding. We played that fantastic role, landed on the comet through the Rosetta mission, which was awarded a Physics World Breakthrough of the Year in 2014. It's so incredible to be part of that, to see our scientists designing the instruments that are used to send information back here to Earth, for which can give us clues as the origin of life on our planet. We are truly trailblazers, literally. You have to remember that you're part of that university that does this incredible work. Now, if you had time, and I doubt you did, you might have been watching some TV as well. And if you were watching some TV, you would have noticed that nearly every year we produce 25 programs with the BBC. And you would have seen such classics like Frozen Planet, Coast, Thinking Aloud, and even The Hairy Bikers. And more recently, you might have seen Inside the Commons. Now, those TV programs are watched by, on average, 220 million times and almost 500,000 adults in the UK every year. And a lot of your learning materials actually come from those incredible presentations that we develop with the BBC. We're very lucky to have such a fantastic partner. So, with all of that, all that great learning and teaching, all that great research and all that technology, you can see that we're a world leader in this space. And that makes your qualifications even more competitive, relevant, and very desirable. But it also means that this is not just your achievement, it's ours too, the universities. From the advisor in the registrations area who handled your first telephone calls or the email inquiries, the academics who have designed and written your courses, and the student services staff who support you when you feel like you can't really go on. And of course, our associate lecturers, the men and women who guide you through the whole Open University learning experience, from the moment you register to the moment you cross the stage today. Every one of us at the Open University has a little stake in what you've accomplished, and every one of us is incredibly proud of what you're celebrating today. So I'd just like to take one moment to say thank you to those Open University staff who make this all possible. Colleagues, would you please stand? I think I always confuse them when I say that we'd like to thank them as well for the work they've done. Thank you. Having an OU degree is also a great asset on your CV, and I've studied at a distance, so I know what that commitment's like. And to be successful at OU study, you need really high levels of motivation, you need fantastic time management, self-discipline, and resilience. And all of those things are absolutely essential in today's contemporary workplace. And I know that many of you, as a result of your studies, will have gained confidence in your current job. You've either been promoted or perhaps you've even changed careers. And we know that as a fact because you've told us that. In fact, 87% of our students in Scotland say that the study with the Open University has improved their transferable skills, access to jobs, and different industries. However, what all those TMAs and EMAs and exams didn't test is what it takes to be a successful OU graduate. So I want to emphasise to you now that your qualification is also an implicit validation of a range of qualities that go beyond what an assignment or an examination can tell us. It shows that you're able to display commitment, dedication, and perseverance against the odds. It shows you're capable of fulfilling your aspirations, no matter what obstacles appear in your way. It shows courage to start something new, to see it through, and to finish successfully. As Open University students, you're really like no others. Now, I know that many of you completed your studies while holding down demanding, challenging jobs, looking after your families, with many other responsibilities. It's not easy to fit the assignments in, the tutorials around those busy lifestyles, especially when most of our students completing their courses part-time and usually take between 6 or 7 years. Now, how many of you are actually working? Put your hand up. How many of you? Wow, that's incredible. You've got through your studies and you've worked full-time too. Good for you. But I also know there's only one other thing that's harder than being an OU student, and that's living with an OU student. So today we should also celebrate and pay tribute to your family and friends who are celebrating with you. I know when I was studying at a distance, the routine that I had, and I don't know if your routine was like this, but I'd come home from work, I'd get some dinner into me, whatever was prepared, usually by the husband who was waiting faithfully there. And then finally I'd go down into the study, I'd do 3 or 4 hours, lose myself, and then I'd look at the clock at some awful hour, around midnight or so, and I go, oh gosh, I've got to be in bed, so off I went to bed. And my routine would go for days and days and days and weeks like that. And if I didn't have somebody there to support me, I certainly wouldn't be really here where I am today. And I'm sure you've all got great people sitting there behind you. So when you're studying, they're kind of studying with you. So what I'd like you to do is actually stand up and face your family, and I'd like you to applaud your family and thank them for how they've supported you. So the bad news, family and friends, is unfortunately the students or the graduates are going to get to the wine before you do. So a few final comments. And if I was at a 21st birthday party or at a wedding, we might find a few of those sort of embarrassing and charming anecdotes that describe you. And I found a few. I follow you on Twitter and I see you on Facebook. I even talk to some of you occasionally. And I found some absolute corker of some quotes here. So I thought I might share some of these things with you. So somebody wrote very recently, the dog literally ate my assignment, accompanied by the photo. And then someone replied, thank goodness, it's all online, you can download a new copy. Well, there was another one that I quite liked. It said, I'm having an OU student crisis. My only highlighter has just stopped working. And I'm going to stop procrastinating once I've checked all my social media. And I particularly like studying. That gives me a reason to be in my PJs for the entire day. I like the encouraging ones though too. There's a lot of this like, do not give up. The beginning is always the hardest. And anyone who thinks being an OU student is easy has clearly never been one. And I'm hoping life will resume once I've finished my TMA. And one particular tweet or person I follow is called The Secret Life of an OU Student. And it appears that the secret life of an OU student includes chocolate, wine, and crisps and beer. Otherwise, the TMA can't be done. Sharing in the joy of others' successes, though, is a common theme through the Twitter feeds and on Facebook. And there's a lovely one here from Tamara where she says that she enjoys doing the samba around her dining room in celebration of submitting her TMA 4 days early. But my favourite so far, and it's just this week actually, it was under the heading of the best overheard quote. I'm sure some of you contribute to that. But one person said, we are a breed unto ourselves, a patchwork of different shapes, styles and vintages. How lovely. You are a wonderful community to each other, and I thank you for sharing your journey. You bring it to life. When we know it can be lonely and isolating, thank goodness for social media. If you're continuing your studies, take full advantage of the community that surrounds you. Be an active member. They are your best supporters. But finally, don't rest on your laurels. Our motto, on the crest right behind me, is learn and live. This is something that all Open University graduates embody as soon as they step back into their busy lives. For with the achievement also comes responsibility. A responsibility to give something back, to put your qualifications and knowledge to the best possible use where you work, where you live, and with your family. Don't think of today as the end of your education. It's just another step along a lifelong journey. And remember, keep in touch. Tell us how you're getting on, because when you leave today, you become an ambassador for the Open University and all that it stands for. A university that stands for social justice, for equality, and education and knowledge for all. A university that you can be proud of and can say, I studied here. It has been such a pleasure for me today to shake your hands and I congratulate you. Now can I ask all the graduates to stand one last time, because I would like to hear the most thunderous applause we can possibly give them as we end this ceremony. Please stand. This degree ceremony have now been completed, and I declare this meeting of the congregation closed. The piper will now provide us with a musical farewell, at the end of which I would ask all of those who are able to stand, please do so.